Hello.
Jesse,
All right. How are we doing
how are
this
you?
week? Good.
Good. All right. Hi.
How's the troublemaker?
She's a handful.
Yeah.
She's good. She goes from being super high energy, run, fighting everything, and then she'll pass out and cuddle for hours.
Yeah,
So,
sounds like a puppy.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
pretty normal stuff.
Good. Yeah, her and Doug are working on it.
Yeah. How's he doing?
He's still like 100% of the time avoiding her. He'll sit in the room now. Like if we're in the room, he'll be in there. But he like if she goes near him, he doesn't want anything to do with it.
Sure. Yeah. One thing that you can do, I'm not sure if I mentioned this last time, to help build a relationship with them is go for walks together.
Okay.
Because this way they're doing an activity together, but she's not interacting with him. So then it allows him to like have time with her, do something, and then not feel so pressured or feel like, oh, like I gotta deal with you again, you know.
Right.
Um, that's how I build. Like when we have dogs that are not dog friendly, that's one of the things that we do is we just walk them with other dogs, and then
Okay.
over time, ideally, they get over it and start to be a little bit more social. Um, but that's another thing that you can do to help him coexist with Remy.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we have walked him a couple times, but that's a great idea to keep him out because he is more playful when we're outside of the house.
Oh,
For
okay.
sure.
Sure. Okay. Anything else?
Um, I think other than that, things are going well. The potty training's going well. She hasn't had an accident in the house this week, which is great.
Good.
She's actually going. She's gone to the back door a couple times and whined,
Sure.
and then gone out, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
She can hold it in her crate. I mean, 8 hours a night.
Yes.
So she's never had an accident in her crate.
That's good.
Which is good. The food, we were worried that she was a little dehydrated, and I think she just was kind of thrown off with her water schedule. Like her poops are normal. She hasn't been diving for her water. She's been going for her food first. So
Sure.
I think she's getting a little more used to it.
Good.
I know we've been practicing the like having her sit and lay and break. She's got her breakdown pretty well from her crate.
Okay.
And she'll go in like now, like we have to kind of coax her into the room with the treat. But when you sit there, she knows it's time. She'll run right in. I haven't really seen a decrease in her whining.
Okay.
Like she'll start to whine. Like when you put her in, she'll get comfortable, and then once you leave the room, she'll start whining, and it usually lasts for about 5 to 8 minutes.
Okay.
And then she'll stop and she gets comfortable, but she still whines. Like when you put her in, she'll whine after her meal.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you're putting her in for like the night, or for like, let's say you're gonna just put her in to be separate from her during the day, you're still getting that 5 to 8 minute whine as well there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. During the day, yeah, when we're here, because we put her in the room, we close the door, try to create as much distance. She'll definitely whine more when she can hear you walk by.
Right.
Then it's quiet and you're just in the kitchen,
Right. How do you feel about it?
Honestly, as long as I don't hear it, it doesn't bother me.
Sure.
Because I kept thinking, like, if we weren't home, she would just be doing that and she would be fine.
Right.
To me, it seems like, and I'm not home all day like Alexa is.
Mm-hmm.
Alexa works from home. I'm not here. But it seems like eventually she gets the hint and stops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not overwhelming. It just hasn't changed at all.
So you can do one of two things, okay? Because you have the variable of your home, right? Whereas anybody else, if they left for a 9 to 5, their puppy might whine that 5 to 8 minutes, but it's like whatever, right? Until eventually time goes by and the puppy just matures out of that. So you can 5 to 8 minutes for me is fine, and I just keep an eye on it to see at some point when does it go away, right? Or I go, all right, we've given you 2 to 3 weeks to acclimate, and the whining's gotten better, or the shrieking or whatever, but it's still static, and we want 0 ideally. Is you can correct her for the whining, but then you have to use a physical aversive. Okay, like it wouldn't be like you go in. I'm not like going in and going like quiet, because that's not going to have any relation to her physically. Like it's just a sound. But did I send you the bonker videos? I think so, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can actually bonk the kennel. Okay. It's not going to make her hate the kennel. It's not going to make her not want to go in there or anything like that. It doesn't make it the kennel a punisher because it's contextual. So if she goes in there and she just lays down and chills, nothing happens. If she goes in there and whines, within the first few seconds of her whining, I immediately correct with the bonker. And you can just whack the kennel. You don't have to like open the gate and do all that stuff. You can just, the kennel itself, okay? And you might see her startle, and then like she'll lay down and like just walk away and we're done. Okay, so it's momentary, because the big concern about aversives with the kennel is that people think it's going to make the puppy hate the kennel, which will then make more behavioral issues. Okay, and that's not how it works, because it's momentary. To make the kennel a bad place, you would have to make the entire experience in the kennel bad. Okay, so if she was in there for 1 hour and you were like rattling the kennel and shouting and doing all these things, and then let her out and then it stops, that makes it bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if she's in there for two hours and I do 2 or 3 bonker corrections that last a second, that's minuscule. Okay. So I leave it up to you. You can go either way, but I would definitely say if you start approaching like, I don't know, I would say 2 to 3 more weeks of her consistently whining at 5 to 8 minutes. My only concern would be what happens when she gets older, like 6 months to a year. Is it going to escalate? That's the only thing I would think about. Okay. But otherwise, 5 to 8 minutes is not terrible. Okay.
Yeah, that's good to know, because we did discuss last week correcting her if she was whining in her crate by going in and correcting her, and I had that thought the first time I did it of like, oh, I don't want her to feel like scared of being in her kennel if we're coming in to correct her.
Right. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then like, because you went like this, right? So were you doing the Cesar correction?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do that too. Now don't be surprised because she's small and you do the Cesar correction and you feel like you're really jabbing, okay? Yeah. It's super, because you have a pity and they're pretty solid, okay? Even their pups. And you got to remember, dogs bite each other. So even though for you it's like, man, that was really firm, they have a much higher pain tolerance than humans do, right? So for you, what feels like a 10, which is the max, could be 3 to her. Okay? Every dog is different, and as you do it more, you start to kind of gauge your numbers according to her as opposed to according to you. Okay? Because every puppy is different, every personality is different, and like I had a dog that like a 3 to her, or I'm sorry, my 3 was like a 10 to her. So I had to acclimate my correction, really, so that my 10 became what was her 3, right? And do my math that way. And the same thing for these guys. And I remember I had a Pomeranian who was like 3 to 4 pounds, tiny little Pomeranian. And the owner had to jab him so bad. Is that me? The head was like a really firm correction. And the dog would like fly across the kennel, right? And he's like, I feel terrible. He's like, the moment I walk out the room, he's barking again. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, because even though he's 3 to 4 pounds and all that, like you have to understand, like dogs bite the crap out of each other, and the dog's logic is not the same as the human logic. Okay. And that's why little tiny teacup dogs are so hard to train because one, people feel really bad about correcting them. But then two, if let's say you're giving them the harshest correction and it's still not enough, there's not really a whole lot of training tools available to provide an aversive for a dog that small, you know? So that's one thing. And then as she gets older and she gets more filled out and stuff, you'll find that she might get physically tougher. And then the hand corrections get a little bit more difficult to perform. And that's where other tools like come into play, like prong collars. There's the bonker as well, and then like e-collars and stuff like that. So, okay.
Good. Okay.
Anything else?
I think only the two things I wanted to ask you about today were she's only done it once or twice. Like I'm not as worried about it, but if it becomes an issue, she's really good at coming when you call her.
Yep.
But she has run sometimes. Like if she gets something,
Sure.
and she like runs away from you. She's running from me in the backyard when I gave her like a little like steer pizzle or something to chew on.
Sure.
How do we address that with her?
Okay, so for Foolproof Recall, which is no matter what, you can make the dog come back, is advanced e-collar stuff. Okay? For now, for puppies, anytime you call her, always feed. Okay? Because you want to associate, it's a guarantee. And I do that for months with food. Just every time. I'll have something in my pocket. So if I randomly call her out of nowhere, I can reinforce it, right? 2, never yell at her if she's being a brat and not returning. Okay? So once she arrives, don't go bad. Okay? Don't scold her. Because then she's going to think if she comes to you, she might get yelled at. Right? So you don't want her to associate it. It's always positive, okay, for the recall stuff. If you see Remy, maybe she's in the yard and something's got her attention, and you think to yourself, I'm pretty sure if I call Remy, she's not going to come. Right? Don't call her. Instead, go to get her yourself. What you're trying to avoid is her choosing the option of not returning, and then she becomes a gambler. Because at this phase of training, you can't make her come if there's no leash, right? If there's no leash, you cannot make her return. So she goes, well, you called me. I chose not to. Nothing bad happened. Cool, right? So now there's no aversive. If she's doing something disobedient, or not disobedient, let's say she's like chewing on a shoe. She's got a shoe. And you're like, Remy, and you go to pursue her to get the shoe. Dog runs away, right? Remy, come. You do not want to do that, okay? Because she's in flight mode. She's in, nope, you can't catch me, I got this shoe, right? So you don't want to call her. Instead, what I do is I just continue to pursue her, okay? I'm not running, unless it's an emergency. I'm walking towards her in a disciplinary fashion, okay? So you're just, you're not laughing because it'll motivate her to keep doing that, right? But just slowly but surely in a disciplinary fashion, I'm pursuing Remy. And let's say she's running in circles, then I'm walking and I'm just pursuing her, okay? Taking my time. Eventually, you keep pursuing and it might be 15 minutes. She's gonna go, this isn't a game. And you're gonna see her possibly sit down, drop the shoe and kind of like, what's going on? And then you correct. All right. So in the beginning, the brain goes into playful mode. And in order to communicate you're not playing, you have to be serious and just wear the dog out until eventually they'll sit down. Because she's the one running, right? She's the one burning off all that energy. And eventually she's going to tuck her out. And then she sits down and goes, I guess this isn't a game. And then the correction at the end, and they will relate this, will resonate to the fact that she took off with the shoe. Okay? Even if it's been 15 minutes. So then, the next time I see Remy with the shoe and I go to pursue her, she might in the beginning try to run off, but it'll be very quick because she's going to go, oh, this is like last time, right? And you chase me for 15 minutes. There is no giving up on your part. She spits it out. She sits down. I correct again. Okay? There's always a correction. And then eventually, she's got something. I go to pursue her. She just walks away from it. Because she knows that I'm going to pursue her and correct her at the very end. And she goes, it's not even worth it. Okay? And I've done this myself. For example, I had a Samoyed who, when I used to board dogs out of my home, I woke up in the middle of the night to him pissing across my house. Okay? And I woke up and I was like, what the hell? So I just opened the front door. He runs out and pees the longest pee of his life that I've ever seen, right? It's winter, Chicago, snowing. I'm in my boxers, okay? I'm like, Sam, let's go. He looks at me after he's done pissing, starts running around the yard. I'm like, man. I put on my shoes, in my boxers, snowing in Chicago. I pursued him about 10, 15 minutes. He sat his butt down, tucked his ears back, very firm correction. He ran his ass inside. Okay? Fast forward a couple of days, he tried the same thing, and as soon as I walked towards him, he sat his ass down and said, I'm not going to play that game with you. Okay? But because I took the time to pursue and teach him, you're not going to run away. I'm not joking with you. And eventually he's like, they give submission. So if you watch Cesar Millan, he does this a lot, where he's pursuing the dog, and then they'll cut ahead and it'll say like 20 minutes later, and then the dog's giving submission, right? But he's doing more like the behaviors are typically when they take that long, it's because he's coming in from ground zero. The longest I've ever seen it, in my experience, is about 10 to 15 minutes. But once you do that first time, it's easy peasy, okay? But because recall is one thing, okay? Recall is come to me. But until you can provide an aversive to make her return, like even if like she didn't come to you and you pulled her in with the leash, like that's not an aversive enough, because once you remove the leash, she's still gonna know like you don't have the power. Okay? So at this stage, always feed when she does return. Never scold if she's being naughty and takes a long time. Okay? Always feed if it happens. 3, avoid calling her if you know she's not gonna return, if she's more likely not gonna return. Okay? So like if she's got something in being bad. Now in the future, when you do more advanced training, yes, you can get it to the point where if the dog is like chasing a squirrel or running away with something they shouldn't have, where you get the recall where she will return to you. Okay? But that requires more advanced techniques. Okay?
Yeah. And like I guess would that apply, like the correcting her, like she's associating the behavior, she knows it's wrong, correcting her after she's corrected herself, like she'll run onto Doug's bed, and we've made it clear, correcting her, that she's not allowed on Doug's bed. She has her bed, and Doug will not stay in his bed if she's there. So at first when we saw her, we're correcting her out of it, and now when you leave the room, she'll run on his bed and watch you, and then when you come back in the room, she dives off of it. As you walk towards her, because she knows she's not supposed to. I mean, so do we correct that when she gets off of it still? Or
it's funny. There's me and puppies. Like I've had my puppies, but there's sometimes where I'm like they're just hilarious, But so there's 2 things here. She's clearly testing a boundary, is what that is. Okay. So even though you're correcting her, she'll respect the rule when you're not there. And this is like kids, remember, right? So like me, I'm the oldest out of 4 kids. and my mom would have to leave like, oh, I got to get groceries, right? But I'll be grounded. I couldn't watch TV, and she'll say, Jesse, you're in charge of the kids. At the same time that I'm grounded, right? Don't watch TV. But there was nothing to make me not watch TV. So the moment she was gone, car was gone, TV was on. The moment I heard that car go in the driveway, TV was off, right? So you can get her to respect that rule, okay? There's realistic and unrealistic expectations, though. If you're present within the home, yes, she should be able to do that, but I would not expect her, like, if you fast forward to when she can be free and alone in the home, if you had something like that set up, for example, like not allowed on the couch, she's going to jump on the couch, okay, just so that you're aware. But that does tell me the aversive to her isn't enough to make her respect that boundary, even if like you're just in the next room. Okay, so two things. One, if she goes to the bed, the correction has to be firmer. Okay, like I mean, and firm to the point where like I correct her to where she runs her little butt away. Okay. Because when a mom bites the puppy yips and runs away. They're like, crap, I don't want to mess with you. They don't yip and stay there. They yip and run away, right? And people don't see that part, that the correction was that firm that they made the puppy go. The second thing is you can correct even though she's self-corrected. She's playing the game, right? It's that kind. She's going, yeah, I'm doing it. But if you're coming to stop me to get me off, well, you can't do it now because I'm not there anymore, right? But you absolutely can. Okay. But you have to do it. So let's say she sneaks to Doug's bed. I walk in the room. You start to see her going. I immediately pursue, and you'll see her in the bed, and like her ears are back like, hey, correction, right? Because now you can try to play that game, but if you want to avoid the correction, you just don't do it, right? So one of my things that I've told like my younger brothers and stuff, I was like, you know what's good, you know what's bad, right? My whole thing is I don't want to get in trouble, I don't do it, right? But there is that kind of gray area. It was like if you don't want to get in trouble, don't get caught, right? Otherwise, don't complain if you get caught and you got to suffer the consequences, right? So it's kind of the same thing here. It's like, hey, you want to get in trouble? You want to get disciplined? Don't get caught or don't do it. Okay? So as long as you see it, her, like you know what she's doing, you can absolutely correct. Now, if it's been 5 minutes that she's been sitting there after pushing the boundary, that's way too long. Okay? Because there's too much of a disconnect. The difference between walking around and pursuing her for 15 minutes and her self-correcting and having self-corrected for 5 minutes before being addressed is that when you're pursuing, you're keeping her in the mind state, right? Because she's playing the game. She's still stuck in that mindset. That when you correct 15 minutes later, it still resonates to what happened. But if she's on Doug's bed and I look at her and she self-corrects and I go to like dry my hands or something, right? And I come back a minute later, it's too far gone. She's not going to connect that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, super common, nothing out the ordinary. She is playing a boundary, and I'd most likely bump my corrections because that's when people play games, right?
Yeah, and this only came up this week, because I think that we both knew, like, puppies are chaotic and lots of energy, and I have no problem correcting her, but I started to worry, like, it's constant corrections. Like, we play and we walk, but it's just constant, no. Yeah. So I don't know the line between, like,
too much?
Let a puppy just be, she's just a puppy, and, like, which boundaries I need to set, or if I need to be setting all of them. Like, if it's okay that it's constantly just whack.
Yes.
Okay.
So, because you're still learning, okay? That's one thing. Because you're learning as your puppy's learning, which makes it even longer.
Right.
If you give me your puppy 5 minutes, Okay, it's literally all it will take me, because I know how to discipline a puppy to the point where they're not gonna want to f with me. Okay,
Right.
but you're learning. It's normal, and there's no rush. Okay, I just I know people's thought process is it's a puppy, right? That's an excuse. If you look at mother dog with litter, it's like when she's like you're done, it's you're done. Okay, not playing, right? Very firm, very black and white. So, but people think puppies mean running around, yipping, barking, peeing, pooping, all this stuff, and I go absolutely not. My puppies will sleep all day, and they only run around and do their crazy puppy stuff when I give them permission. If I take them in the yard, if I put them in the playpen, if I engage with them myself. But other than that, they're sleeping, they're resting, they're calm. Okay, so much like a kid growing up, I was a young kid full of energy, but my mom had rules, and if I got too loud, she'd say, "Take it outside." Okay, my mom had very strict rules. So like I couldn't, obviously like the most common thing is don't play baseball in the house, right? Because you'll break something. Take it outside. But if I was playing with my friends and we got loud, she'd be like, "Nope, outside,"
Right.
right? Or she'd take us to the playground. Hi.
Hey.
She'd take us to the playground, and then we could be all crazy energy, right?
Right.
Because dogs learn by association. I want my home ideally to be calmness, and then play and all that stuff outside in the yard, at the dog park when I give you permission, right? So like for me growing up, if my mom said we're going to church, I wasn't like yay church. But if my mom said, hey, we're going to Disneyland, a lot of energy, right? Very excited. So same thing for the puppy. If they associate craziness and running around, that becomes the association of the home. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and yes, all this stuff was normal, but you're getting that down now so that you're saving yourself a load of heartache in the future. But I know if you read online and books, there's like the fear periods and all these things, right? Have you guys read any about that stuff? Okay. So as a puppy matures, there's these things called fear periods, right? And I forget the time frames of when they happen. Because I read this book like 10 years ago, I have never, ever seen that come into play with raising a puppy. Ever. Okay? My opinion is if you correct your puppy and she acts scared, okay, and you coddle her or you put in a lot of negative energy, no, no, right? That's what creates a problem. But if you just do a firm kind of emotionalist correction, and it's a firm correction, but you're just like, boom, we're done. There's no issue. The puppy will recover, right? If the puppy overreacts and shrieks, I leave them alone, I let them recover. So what that tells me is it's a softer puppy, personality-wise, but they toughen up by physical discipline. This is something I see happen a lot, that when I come into the picture, I'll see a very low confidence dog or a puppy that's overreacts and like is a drama queen. So the owners don't want to discipline because they're afraid they're going to make it worse. And I go, no, you make it worse by not disciplining, because one, the dog's doing stuff it shouldn't do, but two, since when dogs bite each other, they bite the puppies and all that stuff, they're toughing each other up. So it's more so the lack of firm discipline than the actual application of that creates problems. Okay, so yes, and your dog's personality type, your puppy, because I think I mentioned this like even on the first time you had her and stuff. I was like, I'm picking up that this is a more confident dog or going to be a pushier one, right? That's it. Okay.
Yeah, she definitely is. But I appreciate the creating calm in the house, because that's when I feel like we're correcting her the most. Is that we're trying to relax and hang out, and she's just, as you can see, jumping on people, running around, wanting to play.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like we're constantly correcting her because we're like, no, we're trying to relax. We don't want you jumping. We don't want you biting. So that just makes me feel a little bit better that we're not like,
and
setting unrealistic expectations for her.
Yes, and firmer corrections.
Okay.
Definitely. Because you're learning, right? But if I correct her for jumping on me, and she does it 5 times, and I correct 5 times before she stops, ideally I want it by the first time, if not the first time, the third time. Okay, and then I take into thought. Let's say we escalated from the first correction was a 2, the second correction was a 5, and the third correction was a 10, right? And she stops on the third correction. Maybe she yelps, but she stops. Then the next time, I'm not going to do 2, 5, 10. I'm going to do 10. Because she already told me that that's what's going to work for her, right? Once you learn the firmness, I begin to start with that level of firmness for every correction, because that's what's going to get her to stop questioning things. Because right now she's like, yeah, you'll correct me, but you won't mean business until like the 5th correction. Yeah. Okay, so welcome to having a puppy. It's all normal stuff.
She's lovely. I don't have any other questions.
So when you're playing with her, she's nipping at you,
Mm-hmm.
you're not able to correct her when she's got her mouth on your hand. So she nips and then runs away, comes back, nips, and runs away.
Mm-hmm.
You want to correct her when she's running away?
What I would do there, she got a shoe, I can see. I would have, so let's try this. Can we put her on a collar and leash?
Yeah. Go grab it. Grab her martingale one, please. That one? No, the one.
It was funny. I just saw her like walking over in the background with the shoe in her bag.
She has a favorite squirrel that she likes to play with, and it's the same fabric as that particular shoe.
Ah, gotcha.
She loves that shoe.
Sure.
She also puts Doug's big ball in her mouth, and it's really hilarious.
Oh, really?
Let's back up a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead and back up there. And who wants to be the guinea pig here?
I will.
All right. So go ahead and just hold the leash like where she has it, where Alexa has it. That's pretty good. Yep. And then bring Remy into your lap.
Come on, Ren.
And it's just, I'm going to have you like antagonize and pet around the mouth and like kind of like roughhouse with her a little bit.
There we go. So there?
Yeah, now correct. On what number do you think that correction was? On a 1 to 10 scale?
I didn't correct her soon enough.
Oh, okay. Let's try that again.
And normally she's a lot more active than this. And she's nipping a lot harder, and now she doesn't want to play.
Okay, now continue. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think that correction was?
Like a 1 or a 2.
Right, okay. And she pulled her mouth away, right? Now here we want to think context. Like you said before, she's usually biting firmer. She's usually much more high energy, right? Is your correction may shift according to her energy. Like that I would correct. Now continue. Yeah, continue petting her. Yep. So those corrections are like little, like attention taps. And what you're trying to do here is if you take your hand, one hand like this, and your other hand like this, okay? And just go against your hand. Okay? And increase the intensity.
Yeah, that's...
Okay? There you go. So I can hear them. Those are firm. Those are, and your hand, right? You're like, oh crap, that's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, and that's a lot harder than I'm correcting her.
Right. So one thing that I have my clients do, and it sounds silly, but that exercise, okay? Because it allows you to feel what your intensity is and when you're escalating. So then you can then take that same intensity and apply it to your puppy. Okay? Because those, the ones that you did here were good. I could see them. They're very clear. I could hear them, so that, which was telling me, like, can you hear those?
Yeah.
Right? Ow. So those are very firm. Okay? So when you're applying it to Remy, it's that same concept, right? Where now you know how to control your intensity, and you said yourself it was like a 1 or a 2, right?
Yeah.
And she did it 2 more times in terms of the mouthing stuff. So that tells me, like, the 1 to 2 got her attention, but didn't teach her, like, don't do it in the first place. So then I might come in at a 3 to 5, okay, and then see what does that achieve. And you might be playing with her. You'll correct her. She'll try to leave, but that's why we have the leash. So I can keep her in the context, keep petting her, and if she tries it again, I repeat. Okay? Does she need to? Yeah.
So if we're playing with her, do we see her start doing that at this age then? If she does that once, like nips and runs, then go get the leash, put the leash on her, and keep playing with her until she does it again.
I see. So that's going to be a different context, okay? So think of this as kind of setting the foundation for Remy, is that you're making a controlled context, okay? Which we hope transfers to real life context. If it doesn't, or she still tries to push because she's like, well, you don't have the leash anymore, you go to what I mentioned earlier, right? So like, let's say she goes to your hand, you correct her, and she runs away. Then you go into pursuit mode. Okay? You wait for her to settle. Then you correct so you don't need the leash. Okay? The reason why you do that is you're teaching her, you can try to run away, but I will pursue you until you tire yourself out, and I will still correct you. Okay? Like, dogs learn these things. So the next time when you go to correct her, what you'll see is she'll just sit down. She'll just take it. She's not even going to try to run away anymore because she knows you're not going to play that game. Okay? So the leash thing, like here, you can even correct the leash chewing.
To correct it when she chews.
Yeah. So just so that you're aware, like, go ahead and let the leash relax. And then right there when she goes to, yep. And what you want to do here is leave your leash how it is, right? Just be relaxed with it and just correct. Yep. And then wait. So your corrections are like, I feel like I'm seeing like a maybe still 1 to 2 correction. Okay?
They definitely be more firm. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when we do Cesar Millan corrections, this is super common because people tend to have a psychological hump about physical corrections because you feel like you're hitting your dog. Okay. As you apply them, you kind of get over that, especially if you see dogs just bite each other, you know, and it's normal. But that's why she kept pushing the leash thing, right? She just kept rolling around. So you'll know when you've done a good correction when if she's biting the leash, when you correct her, she lets it go herself and just relaxes. Okay? If you pull the leash away from her, you've removed the context. So the only reason she's not biting it is because you took it away. Right? So like same thing with the shoe. If she has a shoe and I correct her, she'll spit the shoe out and walk away. And I don't have to worry about it because I can leave my shoe there because I know she's not going to touch it. Right? That's how you'll start to notice and learn that what you're doing is correct. Okay? And did you happen to watch the bunker videos?
Yeah, we did.
If you look at the intensity, that the third one, the Gary Wilkes and the boxer, it's firm,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is.
It's the same thing here, right? Because your logic and her logic are different. She might need a very firm whack or whatever, bonker or Cesar touch just to get her to stop chewing on the leash. Okay, but to the human, you go, but she's just chewing on the leash, right? Because everybody relates things to aggression. Aggression is the pinnacle. As long as my dog's not being aggressive, it's not bad.
Right.
My dog's just whining in the kennel. They're not aggressive. I go, yeah, they're not. But if you want to stop the whining, you'll have to be prepared to possibly do a very firm correction for what's seemingly a very minor behavior. Okay, so you get used to it with the logic stuff, because I come across it all the time. But like Jesse, like the dog, for whatever reason, keeps counter serving no matter how harsh I correct them. I'm like, yeah, because it's still not enough to the dog.
Right.
So you have to go even harsher. And then they're like, really? Just for counter surfing? I'm like, well, if you want to eliminate it, yes. If you don't care, then I don't care. Your dog at the end of the day. But that's something, especially with these little cute puppies, you gotta kind of get that mindset in, and then that's when you really start to make a lot of progress. Okay. But all those corrections, I saw you like escalating the intensity, and unfortunately, like I couldn't gauge too well from here, but they didn't seem any firmer than possibly a 3 from what I could see.
No, and I think you're right about, if she was being more aggressive, then my correction would have been more firm.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter what behavior she's displaying, the same correction, same firmness.
Yes.
Even if, yeah.
Once you find, so I have no problem with, like if I get a new dog and I correct them, I'm not going to assume stubborn and just bam them. I'll do subtle, right? So if it's a very sensitive dog, I go, okay, you're subtle, so I don't need to go to this intensity, right? So I'm gauging the dog. But once I've gauged the dog, I know where to go. For Remy, I have no problem if you start with 2 to 3, right? And then you escalate, and then you escalate. But once you find the number or the intensity that works, now I know, okay, this is the intensity that I'm going to start with as opposed to end with. Okay? Because you're learning yourself and you're learning what Remy needs. But once you've come to that conclusion, now you know, okay, Remy needs a 7. She might need a 7 for nipping and biting, but she might only need like a 2 when it comes to the shoe. These are all things that it's appropriate to the behavior, and as long as the behavior is going down and becoming less frequent, then you're doing good. Okay. Other
this is
question.
Been with all of us in the same room in like 3 days.
You definitely also, whenever you see Remy do something, you want to disagree with it immediately. Okay? If you let Remy, jump on you for 5 minutes or whatever before you decide to correct her, you're teaching her she can do the behavior for up to 5 minutes before you disagree with it. Okay? I disagree the moment I see it, and I know I do not want that behavior. Okay? You'll save yourself a lot of heartache because people tend to excuse things because they're like, it's not that bad yet. It's not that bad now. Right? But then the puppy learns, well, I can do it for at least this length of time. And it becomes an issue. Okay? And what I suggest is you make a list of things that you want to correct and that you disagree with. So that the moment you see it happening, you already know in your head, I got to go address this. Okay? Did somebody walk in the room?
Doug walked out and she walked.
Okay.
And I was looking for your computer charger.
So, to give you an example, when Remy popped up right there, right? Let's say Remy popped up and booked it.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you probably seen this before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Used to do it.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was watching. I'm like, wonder what she's gonna do, right? But let's say you pick up on that